Hello friends, welcome back to the tourism lecture series. Let's talk about constituents and linkage in tourism industry. Dear friends, tourism is a mass phenomenon and due to which it consists of various service providers. These service providers could be segregated into primary and secondary constituents of tourism industry. Tourism is called industry because it can generate huge employment opportunities and foreign currency for the country, which further helps in the growth and development of any country where it starts and flourished. So, basically, tourism can be divided into primary and secondary constituents. Now we'll talk one by one about primary and secondary constituents. Now, primary constituents of tourism industries are consist of principal service providers, which is directly linked with the tourism concept and phenomena. In other words, principals are the primary service providers in tourism industries. Primary constituents are the major elements in the tourism industries. For example, accommodation sector, which consists of lodging establishments, then hotels, resorts, supplementary accommodation provider, alternative accommodation providers. Then the other elements in primary constituents are the airlines. Then you have the tour operators, tourism organizations, tourist offices, and food joints and catering organization, which normally works, which are the backbone of the tourism industry. These organizations play a very important role in order to facilitate the guest services destinations. So it has a very important role to play within the tourism industry. Accommodations providers such as even train also has accommodations like during traveling 2A, 3A. So that is what the traveling organizations have. Now let's talk about the secondary constituents of the tourism industry. Secondary constituents of tourism industry consist of those elements of service providers which is indirectly connected to the main industry with the process and phenomena of tourism. They are the vital constituents of tourism industry. Secondary constituents like the souvenir shops, emporiums, bank, ATMs, financial institutions, and foreign currency exchangers, artisan, craftsmen, and suppliers of varied ingredients forms the basis of major constituents of tourism industry. Constituents are bank and ATMs, souvenir shops, emporiums, local taxi and car rentals, PCO, public booths. Then there are other hawkers, local hawkers are also that artisan and craftsmen, and so on. There are many others important elements which is indirectly connected with the process of tourism, and also as it is an important part of the tourism industry and process of tourism. Linkage is the best way to understand the importance of each element of primary and secondary constituents of tourism industry. So let's talk about the linkage in tourism industry. In tourism, all service providers are linked with each other either directly or indirectly. In other words, all the primary and secondary constituents of tourism industry are linked with each other in order to fulfill the demand of tourists, guests, and visitors. These service providers are either under the contractual agreement to take the eventual benefit or else connected in informal way with each other. Tourism is a mass phenomenon due to which it cannot be flourished in isolation without depending on others in order to satisfy the guest and tourist needs. The dependency on each other for taking mutual benefits result in forming a web of network among all constituents of tourism industry, which is known as linkage in tourism industry. Let's try to understand the linkage in tourism through the phenomena and constituents of tourism industry in technical way. The coming slide will provide you a complete idea about the linkage. Let's clear with following terms before proceeding to the next slide. Principals, primary constituents of tourism industries. Second, intermediaries. Intermediaries are the linking components in between tourist and primary and secondary constituents of tourism industry, whereas in-house tour operators are when and any airline play a role of tour operators, then they are also known as in-house tour operators. Now let's talk about the linkage. Let's try to understand this through this figure. Through the figure, you can understand the linkage in better way. You can see the tourist, who is also known as consumer in tourism industry, is linked with the intermediaries, is also known as travel agencies, and which further linked with principals like hotels, airlines, tour operators, catering joints, tourism organization, and others. So, and further again, all the tourists, or you can say intermediaries and principals, are further linked with the secondary constituents of the tourism industry in order to get the mutual benefits and satisfy the guest needs at the maximum level. Let's try to understand the figure of linkage with examples. Suppose a tourist willing to travel to a tourism destination, the first thing which comes in his mind is how to go, then second thing where to stay, and then third thing how to visit the place for sightseeing. Besides other common thing like where to eat, what to buy as memento, how to communicate with friends and relatives if personal mobile phone is not working, where to exchange foreign currency, what about health issues, and so on. So, in order to fulfill all of his requirement, either he will approach directly to all service providers, or else to minimize his tasks and burdens, he will hand over his requirements to some third party like travel agency, which is also known as intermediaries in tourism linkage, by paying certain amount against the booking and his requirements. And simultaneously the intermediaries, who is known as travel agent, is going to book all his requirements in various hotels or transport, in the airlines or the car rentals or the sightseeing or the tour guide services, like that. So in the case of tourist, travel agency or travel agent works like a liaison elements in between principal service providers and tourists, and that's why he is known as intermediary in tourism. The business of travel agency and livelihood of travel agent and tourist guides totally depends on the service charge and commissions that they generate from tourists and principals and other secondary constituents of the tourism industry. In the same manner, principals are also connected with other principal elements and secondary elements or intermediary elements for the fulfillment of consumer demands, either through contractual agreement or through verbal agreement. This networking of taking mutual benefit is known as linkage in tourism industry. So basically, linkage is one kind of networking to get mutual benefits to satisfy the guest needs and to generate the revenue, or you can another way we can say to maximize the benefits in terms of revenue and happiness or guest satisfactions. So guys, now friends, now I think that you'd have understood that what exactly is the constituents of tourism industry and the linkage in tourism industry. Thanks for the lecture. Have a nice day. See you with the next lecture. Till then, bye. Please don't forget to subscribe the channel.